What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Andrew Cooper here of Fantasy Alarm. And today, special day for everybody. We've been covering every Friday a different division, right? We got through 6. We're going to do 2 today. We're going to try and get them done in an hour. If it goes longer than an hour, it goes longer than an hour. But we got to talk about these teams. What we've been doing is going through and hitting each division and each individual team and basically saying, okay, this guy's safe. His job is safe. He's on the team. This guy is on the team. His job might not be safe. This guy might not even be on the team. This guy is a free agent. Here's what they need to fill. Here's what they can afford, what they can't afford. We're doing all that so that we can get an advantage in our dynasty leagues, right? So that we can go out and make the moves now, make them this weekend ideally, right? I wrote an article on every single team. So if you want to go back, all the information presented here is in those articles. They're on fantasyalarm.com. Make sure you're an all-pro member, though these ones are free. So you can check all those out. They're all up there. And guess what? I also have a neat little visual guide to help you out, one for each team, right? So here's how the setup is on these. I just talked about how some guys are safe, some guys are not. The green guys here, those guys are on the team and their role is safe. Matthew Stafford is not being replaced as a starting quarterback. We'll talk about some of these other guys, some guys, that could be on the fringe or not. But for the most part, these guys are all in place. The green guys, the yellow guys are guys where maybe their role is they could bring another guy and the role could decrease, or some of those guys could move up, right? But they're not locked in, right? The yellow guys, but they're locked into being on the team. The red guys are guys that could be released or traded. The white guys are guys that are free agents, and I'll talk about who's a exclusive rights free agent or a restricted free agent, who might be back, who might be not. So why not get right into it? We got a lot going on. What's up, everybody in the chat? Jack, Puka in your dynasty. That is Trey Bone. To give you an example real quick on Puka and how difficult it is to hit on a guy like Puka and how impressive it is that you got a guy like that. Day 3 picks. So we're talking 4th, 5th, and 6th rounds. Those picks hit 5% of the time at best. And when you start combing through, I was just having this conversation with a couple of the guys from JWB Fantasy. Shout out Toronto Dave. He was in the conversation as well this morning. That those guys hit 5% or less of the time. And if you comb through the actual names, a lot of those guys, you can see why they fell in the draft. And it's not really just a matter of a teams identifying talent. For instance, Julian Edelman was a quarterback in college. He slid, right? Pierre Garçon was he went to Mount Union, which is a D3 school, right? We all know why Tyreek Hill slid. So when you go through and you pick out all the guys that just slid for other reasons, off-field reasons, the number of guys that are Puka Nakuas and Amon-Ra St. Browns that just fall in the draft and no one knows why, it's so hard to pick those needles out of a haystack. So congratulations, Jack. Great pick. And yes, we're starting off with Ani Coop's favorite team, the Los Angeles Rams. And I'll tell you what, genius moves this offseason so far. So at quarterback, they're set with Matthew Stafford. They're going to need a good backup. If they can bring Carson Wentz back, that would be great. Carson Wentz might want to compete. I don't know if Stetson Bennett is ready to be the backup to a guy like Matthew Stafford, who historically has had some injury issues. They might want to step up and get somebody else. I mean, there's some names out there, like the Drew Locks of the world. And, it depends. The problem with the backup market right now is that a lot of these guys want to compete. Guys like Jacoby Brissett and Gardner Minshew, so it's hard to bring them in when you have a set starter. So they'll have to figure that out. At running back, you've got Kyren Williams. I have him green here because we know that his role as the starter in the early down back is locked in. The only question here, and it's a little question, and people don't like to hear it, is that he has not done well with pass blocking. And in college, that was a strength of his, but his rookie year, he graded out outside the top 120 backs. Last year, he had 7 hurries allowed, which was, like the 8th most of any player. That's the minor concern, that they could go out and bring in somebody in free agency to supplement him. And again, he would still likely be a starter, but I mean, there are some names out there that would be problematic. Like if they were to bring in Austin Eckler to be the pass down back along with Kyren Williams, I don't need to explain to you what that would do to the value for Kyren Williams. So just be careful with that. They're going to need to fill out that depth chart somehow. Royce Freeman's probably gone. Zach Evans is on the team, but he hardly even played. He's a 6th-round pick, so he might not be their pass down back. So they might have to do a little something here. I mean, Kyren Williams is on pace for 300 carries, which is insane. That's like, 2002 style football. So, Sean McVay does like using one back, but just be careful, right? If he can survive through the gauntlet of free agency and the draft without them adding a major piece, though, we're talking about a guy that likely should be a first round pick in your redraft leagues, and you got to be happy about where you got him in Dynasty because again, he was a fifth round pick that fell in the draft because he didn't have a good combine. He was slow, he was undersized, but guess what? The Rams don't go to the combine. They haven't been to the combine since 2017. They do their own research, they use their own metrics, they use the GPS, all that stuff. So Rams aren't really worried about it, right? And that's why they get Kyron Williams and Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua because they're looking at different metrics. Puka Nacua, if you look at his stats in college, at BYU, he was one of the top wide receivers in yards per route run, which is a huge indicative stat for us in fantasy football. So shout out analytics, shout out to the Rams over there. They also made a genius move here, in my opinion, bringing back DeMarcus Robinson, right? 1 year, $5 million for DeMarcus Robinson. I think this is a pretty decent player, man. He good route running. He's got size to line up with his foot tethered to the line and kind of battle the jam. That's huge for the team to have a guy that does that because that frees up Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua to mix and match at the slot, mix and match at flanker. It's a beautiful thing for those guys, right? And they got it for 1 year, $5 million. You look around and T. Higgins has been franchise tagged. Michael Pittman has been franchise tagged. Mike Evans just got signed to a 2-year deal. Calvin Ridley, as we talked about on the show with him when we did the Falcons, there's a little bit of the Falcons and the Jaguars. There's some language in that trade that if they wait until after 3/14, March 14th, and sign him, then they might not have to give a second round pick to the Falcons. It could be a third instead. So he could easily be back with that team. You look around, DeMarcus Robinson, 1 year, $5 million is going to look like a steal at the end of the day. I love that for this Rams team. With the down depth chart here, you look at some of these other guys. Tutu Atwell, you know what? Not quite a hit for fantasy football, but he's a field stretcher. He's fast, and that's all they really need him to do is take the top off safeties from time to time when it's an obvious pass play. You put him out there, send him screaming down the field. You have to account for that speed. Fine player, right? Ben Skronik, teams love Ben Skronik. They love guys like this. This guy plays on every special teams unit, every single one. So for us, we look at it and say, oh, you know what? Whatever, fantasy football. When he gets a shot, he's just kind of serviceable. This guy plays on punt return, kick, kickoff, extra point, and field goal block, right? So teams love that kind of guy. Austin Trammell's an unrestricted free agent, but if he's not back, he is kind of an important player. The last one I'm going to mention from the wide receivers, kind of an important player because he returned virtually every punt and kick for this team. So if he's not back, that's going to dictate what they do in free agency or the draft, both at wide receiver or running back, because you got to have somebody that can do that. So if he's gone, then maybe that's how they decide how to fill out the running back depth. Can this guy return kicks? And wide receiver, can he field punts, right? So Austin Trammell, I think he'll actually probably be back. At tight end, this is where this team is most likely to make a move because Tyler Higbee, he's getting up there in age and he's coming off an ACL. So unless they love Davis Allen and believe in Davis Allen as a starter, which could be the case, they could be in the market to draft a tight end or sign, bring back Gerald Everett, who used to be with the team, a Noah Fant or some of these guys. The thing with Davis Allen for me for fantasy is that people get excited. They love the idea of the backup coming in and being the guy. The problem with Davis Allen for me is that he's not particularly fast. He ran like a 4.8 40, and that essentially means he doesn't have difference-making speed, right? He doesn't have the 4.5 40 time that George Kittle has, and that's why George Kittle has so many 40-plus yard plays. So Davis Allen, guys in his speed range, they have to be absolutely peppered with targets to be fantasy relevant, right? I'll give you an example, Zach Ertz, right? And in our mind, we think great fantasy player, right? But because he ran a 4.76, he never really had breakaway speed. He wasn't turning 20-yard plays into 40, 50, 60-yard plays. He actually only had one 1,000-yard season in his career, and it came in when he was 20 years old, and he needed 156 targets to get there. So that's what I'm talking about. Kyle Pitts, because he runs, like a 4.49, pro day was 4 something. It was even lower than that, but we adjust for pro day speeds. We use player profiler. Shout out to the gang over there. But still super fast. That's why he on 71 receptions had over 1,000 yards. Whereas a guy like Jake Ferguson on 68, he had 68 and over 1,000 yards. Jake Ferguson 71 and 700 yards, right? So I don't know. I think the Rams are pretty set. They're doing pretty good here. Maybe just a backup running back or bring in a tight end, right? So that's it for this squad here for the Rams. We're trying to get through 8 teams today, so not really waxing poetic. We might have to go a little bit over an hour. That's all right though. And yeah, I would better boss in the chat. I would love to see Cooper Kupp get back to form, and I think he absolutely can. He was dealing with some injuries this year, and I'll tell you what, players of his caliber, people in Dynasty, they're always like, oh, he's 30 years old or 31. He's done. He's toast. Great players can continue to be great for longer than other players. That's how you end up in the Hall of Fame, right? And you look at players like Jerry Rice. He's an unfair name because at 34 years old, he had his best season. But in terms of fantasy football, Randy Moss had his best season statistically at 31. Marvin Harrison had his best season. Marvin Harrison Jr.'s father had his best season over the age of 30. Like, great players can continue to be great. So Cooper Kupp can continue to be great longer, whereas other players, when they turn 30 and they slow down, they don't continue to have good seasons. Look at Keenan Allen. Look at Larry Fitzgerald. Look at Anquan Bolden. Like, if you believe in the player, then you keep them, dude. That's what's up. So that's it for the Rams. Let's move on to the next squad here. And we got the 49ers, right? Went to the Super Bowl, and man, that Brock Purdy contract is carrying a lot of weight, baby. Let me tell you, because he's only getting paid. His cap hit for this year and next year is $1 million, right? You can do a lot with that. That's how Tom Brady went to 3 out of 4 Super Bowls to start his career. That's how Russell Wilson went to back-to-back Super Bowls on his rookie contract. The first, when they won the Super Bowl, Russell Wilson represented 0.5% of the cap. Brock Purdy right now represents well less than 1% of the cap, because the cap is like $1 gazillion now, right? And his contract is $1 million. So that's why when you sit there and they add guys, they add Javon Hargrave and they add all these guys, and you go, they can't keep getting away with it. Well, that's why, because their quarterback is paid $1 million, whereas the cap hit for guys like Dak Prescott and Deshaun Watson is $60 million. Just think of how many more players you can get with an extra $59 million, right? You can get 2 Mike Evanses with that money. So Brock Purdy locked in. For Brock Purdy, for Dynasty, for long-term, the concern is the only concern, because he's on the team this year, he's on the team next year. When it comes time to pay him, right, if they don't win by that point, like if they have not won a Super Bowl, what ends up happening is there's a 3-headed monster on every team, which is the GM, the coach, and the quarterback. When things don't go right, one of those heads gets cut off. And I'll tell you, they love John Lynch and they love Kyle Shanahan. So if things do go south, the Brock Purdy head is the one closest to the chopping block. Just keep that in mind, that he needs to prove that he's the winner and deserves the next big contract, and that it's just going to be the 3 of them holding hands and every single year forever, right? Which we hope it is, but just keep that in mind for Brock Purdy. Christian McCaffrey, don't need to say much about him. He's the best running back in the league. Elijah Mitchell is a cautionary tale for us, because he came in, was drafted the same year as Trey Sermon, beat out Trey Sermon, who was drafted before him, and he became the starting running back, and he looked really good. But he had the injuries, so they couldn't trust him. And they looked at how good Elijah Mitchell was doing in this offense and said, what if we got an even better running back? What would that look like? And then they went out and did that, right? And then we saw how good Christian McCaffrey can be with Kyle Juszczyk and Trent Williams in this amazing scheme, right? So be very careful. We've seen this happen a million times. We saw it happen to Tyler Algier. He looked good, and they said, how do we get better? Well, let's go get Bijan, right? We saw it with, Michael Carter with the Jets. Like, people were really excited about Michael Carter, a 4th-round pick, and then they said, let's go use a 2nd-round pick on Breece Hall. So that's what happens to some of these deeper day 3 guys, and you got to be very careful with that. And that's part of the concern we talk about with Kyren Williams, a 5th-round pick. They might look at what Kyren Williams did and say, wow, look at how good Kyren Williams did. What if we had a superstar? How well he would do? So just be very careful. Deebo Samuel, he's locked into his role. They paid him a lot of money, because what he did is he went out when A.J. Brown got traded and A.J. Brown got paid by the Eagles. Deebo Samuel has the same agent as A.J. Brown. And his agent said, hey, AJ Brown just covered his eyes and stomped his feet and threw a tantrum until he got paid and got traded and got paid. Let's do that here. So Deebo Samuel did the whole thing. Oh, I want to get traded. I'm going to scrub you from my Instagram. And then he got paid. And now guess what? Brandon Ayuk is doing the same thing. And his brother is commenting on Instagram, and he's, he doesn't say 49ers, and he's tweeting out things like, the enemy is, he smiles and carries a big knife and whatever diva wide receiver things you do to get paid. But he's trying to do that now. And that's why he's in red, because with Deebo Samuel, he got paid. With AJ Brown, he got traded. And Brandon Ayuk for your fantasy football leagues, your dynasty leagues, this is a guy you definitely want to buy and have, because he's good on this team with Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle in a situation where he's never gotten more than 117 targets. Imagine how good this guy could be if he got traded to the Patriots and he was the best wide receiver on the team and he got 150 targets, or a lot of teams where he would be the best wide receiver and the best pass catcher, and he would get 140, 150 targets. CeeDee Lamb and these guys are getting like 180. Right. So the fact that he's been this good and only has 117 targets as his best season, then yeah, there you go. Oh, there it is. Yeah, the Denny Carter quote. That's what I was going for. It's amazing. It without fail, the wide receivers, man, they love the diva stuff. But there you go. That's the wide receivers. I mean, Juwan Jennings, the thing with the third wide receiver on this team, it's never going to be fantasy relevant because, and people fall into this trap all the time. They say, oh, this guy starts for the 49ers. He's going to be good. They use the fullback Kyle Juszczyk on like 50% of the snaps. So if a fullback is playing half the game, that means somebody's coming out of the game. And it's not going to be McCaffrey or Deebo or Ayuk or Kittle, and it's not going to be an offensive lineman. So who's it going to be? It's going to be Juwan Jennings. It's going to be the third wide receiver. It's the same thing that happens to Braxton Berrios on the Dolphins, and it's going to happen to the third wide receiver on the Texans, who run the same scheme and have Andrew Beckett fullback. So keep that in mind. You can like Nico Collins, you can like Tank Dell, but don't go crazy for the Noah Brown or Robert Woods, whoever you think the third guy is, because that guy is going to play a limited snap share. I'm telling you right now. All right. Down the depth chart on this team, Ray McCloud, amazing name. One of the best names in football, in my opinion. Ray McCloud, Trey Bone. I think my favorite football name of all time is still Colt McCoy, but Ray McCloud, what a name. He returns the kicks and punts, man. So if he's gone, and those are valuable guys, then they're going to need somebody else to do it. Danny Gray can potentially do it. Danny Gray hasn't really done anything for this team, and he was hurt, and he had a shoulder injury, and then he was like, he apparently was healthy, and then they didn't activate him. So that doesn't bode well for him. They could save $1 million by releasing him. That's why he's in red on there. So I don't know. I don't know if he's going to make the team or not. But doesn't really matter. Unless if Brandon Ayuk is there, then we don't care about any of these other wide receivers. If Brandon Ayuk is gone, now we're kind of looking around, and I think Ronnie Bell is probably the most interesting for fantasy football purposes. He's a young guy, scored a couple touchdowns, flashed a little bit. If Ayuk is gone, they're probably going to have to replace him with something, maybe a draft pick. But if Ayuk is there and then Deebo is there, then we don't really care all that much about the rest of these guys. At tight end, George Kittle, stud, star. Awesome. Best two-way tight end in the league. Obviously Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews are great. They basically play wide receiver though. Andrews plays like 85% of his snaps at wide receiver. Kelce plays like almost 70%. George Kittle is an inline two-way tight end. The best to do that since Rob Gronkowski. So he's good. Charlie Warner is a really good blocking tight end. If they don't bring him back, somebody else is going to really like having him. Ross Dwelly is the backup pass catcher if George Kittle gets hurt, but they're both free agents. What happens with them depends on how much they like the two rookies. They double tapped rookie Cameron Latu and Braden Willis. Braden Willis is the blocking guy, so that's why he's in the Charlie Warner category there. And Cameron Latu out of Alabama is a better pass catcher. That's why he's in the George Kittle category there. So if those guys, Warner and Dwelly, are out, that means the rookies are on their way up. I see you guys in the chat. Anthony, Toronto Dave, what's up? I like you guys got the birthday hats on. Today is my wife's birthday. Shout out to Mrs. Kate Rose Cooper on her birthday today. I sent some bagels over to her office for her and the other nurses. So started off on a good note. We scored some points today. And Auntie Coop is coming over to hang out for birthday dinner tonight. So it's a big day over here. Yeah. Get those up. Get the presents out. Get the hats out. Let's go. All right. So that's kind of the 49ers. If you want now, I'm going to take a quick second here. We got a lot to do. So, but I want to talk about the actual game, Dynasty leagues. Like the whole reason we're talking about all this. If you're not actually playing, you should get set up now. You should get set up over at myffpc.com. That's where I like playing. You can use promo code Coop. They'll give you $25 when you deposit 35 or more to get that first team going. Give you a little juice, a little extra money to get started. But over there, a league has never folded. I talked to Eric Bachman. He said that basically what happens is if somebody wants out, then they just sell the team, and you can actually go and pick up those orphan teams, and that's awesome because you go through and you say, "Oh boy, look, we got Brandon Ayuk on this team. Awesome, I'm going to buy it." But there's other guys on the team that we don't love. Like here's Jake Ferguson. I'm going to trade Jake Ferguson away because there's people that like Jake Ferguson. And a lot of times when you draft the team yourself, you're hesitant to make trades and make moves because these are your babies, right? Like you love all these guys. So it's hard for you to trade them away. When you pick up an orphan team, it's awesome because there's a bunch of guys you like and a bunch of guys you don't like. So you have a license to kill and go out and make a bunch of trades. It's a lot of fun, right? Or you could do a startup, which, that is basically you just start from scratch and pick all your own guys. Both are cool, and you can do both over at myffpc.com. Use promo code Coop. They'll give you $25 when you deposit 35 or more. The link is in the description, or that QR code was on the screen there. So a little housekeeping there. Let's get back to the teams because we got to get through all these. Where does the time go? Where does it go? Because we're already 20 minutes in. We've only gone through 2 teams. We're going overtime. Buckle up, baby. Seahawks weapons here. We're going through, for those just joining us, looking at all the weapons for the fantasy relevant players for these teams, right? And the way the chart is set up is green are guys that are locked into the team and into their role, right? The yellow guys are guys that are on the team, but their role is kind of uncertain. Red are guys that could be cut or traded, and then white are guys that are free agents. So on this team, Geno Smith is in. He's the dude. He's the starter. They paid him a bunch of money. I mean, talk about hitting the lottery. Geno Smith could have been a backup, right? Career backup. That's what we all thought at this stage, right? Making like $4, $5, $6 million. Goes, has a phenomenal season, and earns a starting contract in the NFL, 3 years, $75 million. Like that is why every backup QB. That's why if you're Tyler Huntley, the Ravens fans are sitting there and they're like, yeah, Tyler Huntley, he should just stay here and be the backup here forever for Lamar Jackson. He's a great fit and everyone likes him. Well, if Tyler Huntley goes to another team and gets a chance to start, he could make $75 million. That's why he has 70 million reasons not to just sign with the Ravens right now for like a $5 million backup deal. So every one of those guys should go do that. And guess what? A guy on this team, Drew Lock, he went out, started 2 games against the worst time of the schedule for him to all of a sudden be the starter was against the 49ers and the Eagles. He actually beat the Eagles, and he had a great speech afterwards, and I like Drew Lock, and I think Drew Lock should get a shot somewhere. If I'm Drew Lock, I'm hitting up a team like the Giants, and I'm saying, hey, I saw your quarterback got hurt, and he might not be ready to start the season. What if Drew Lock came in and started a couple games, right? And then all of a sudden you get into that room, and when Daniel Jones is back and you're competing with him, they might look at it and say, hey, you know what? Daniel Jones, we pay a lot of money to, and he's not even that much better than Drew Lock. Maybe we'll just go with Drew Lock on a cheaper deal. And that's how you Geno Smith your way in there. You know what I'm saying? So if I'm Drew Lock, I'm going to do something like that, right? And also for the Giants, it's a smart move because you put Drew Lock and Daniel Jones in the room together, and if both of them are competing on the same level, the answer might be that neither of them are the quarterback, but it's a very valuable piece of information to know if Daniel Jones is going to be good or if he's going to not be good. So there you go. Drew Lock to the Giants or to any number of team, maybe a team that is going to draft a rookie or whatever. Again, Gardner Minshew was able to play because, he didn't earn the job, but the starter got hurt. We've seen plenty of guys, beat out rookies early on. It's like Johnny Manziel complaining that Brian Hoyer was the better quarterback than him when he was a rookie. Well, play better, right? What are you going to do? So there you go. That's Drew Lock. Wait, we talked too much about Drew Lock. On to the next ones here. Running back, here's the thing. In fantasy football world, we look at it and we say, this guy's good. Why isn't he the starter, right? Why isn't Jaylen Warren the starter? Statistically speaking, he was more efficient, right? Tony Pollard should be starting over Zeke Elliott because, these numbers, because of the charts. teams don't look at it and say, we have two good running backs, let's use one. They look at it and say, we have two good running backs, let's use them both. So Kenneth Walker is the early down back. Zach Charbonnet has carved out a pass down role for this team, which I like, right? That's how Austin Eckler worked his way in behind Melvin Gordon. He showed that he was great on pass downs, and then eventually he got the full job, and then he was awesome in fantasy football. So Zach Charbonnet, that's his path. I would rather draft Zach Charbonnet just because he goes a lot later than Kenneth Walker. But Kenneth Walker is going to be the touchdown scorer, and he's going to be the early down back. So I don't know. Kind of tough situation for fantasy football. DJ Dallas is a unrestricted free agent. Teams will be interested in DJ Dallas, and you might ask why. And the answer is almost always because he returns punts and kicks, and he does a lot of special team stuff, and that is a valuable commodity. If he is gone, then they will need somebody to do that. DK Metcalf is locked in as your big, strong split end, right? He's the Mike Evans in this offense. Tyler Lockett has been playing the Chris Godwin type role where he is a flanker in two wide receiver sets out wide, opposite of DK Metcalf. And then when they go three wide receiver sets, he used to move into the slot. Now what they do is for three wide receiver sets, they bring in Jackson Smith and Jigba, and he plays the slot. It's the same usage for CeeDee Lamb as rookie. CeeDee Lamb as a rookie played 94% of his snaps in the slot because it was Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup on the outside. So he actually played a partial snap share as a rookie. He, as far as wide receivers that have played 80% or more of their snaps in the slot over the last 5 years, CeeDee Lamb is the only one to finish as a wide receiver 2 in fantasy football. And he was wide receiver 24. So just barely a wide receiver 2. So if you look at JSN and ask yourself, why didn't he break out? That's why. And here's the thing. We brought up DK Metcalf as the Mike Evans. Tyler Lockett right now is kind of the Deshaun Jackson for that period with the Buccaneers. And Chris Godwin is the JSN. Chris Godwin for 2 years had to sit behind those two guys. And then in the third year, what happened when he got that role, the full-time role? Laser show. He was the wide receiver 2 overall in fantasy football. So JSN right now for me is a buy. The question is, does that happen this year? Does Tyler? The reason Tyler Lockett's red there is there are trade rumors. The rumors about him getting moved around. Tyler Lockett was done a huge favor by Amazon and Taylor Swift for getting that cap jump up. The cap rate got boosted up by $30 million. So they'd probably be able to keep Tyler Lockett. But if they were to trade him or cut him or whatever, it would be wheels up for JSN. So there you go. That's where we're hanging on to JSN. We're just waiting for that to happen. If you don't think he's very talented, then go ahead and trade him. Do whatever you want. But I believe in the talent, and I'm waiting for him to have the Chris Godwin laser show breakout. Boom, shakalaka. Jake Bobo, shout out, Massachusetts guy, right? I think Andover, Mass. He basically, we know what he is. People, first of all, great name. Second of all, he's flashed a little bit. When DK Metcalf is out, he goes in and plays the DK Metcalf role. When DK Metcalf is healthy, he doesn't really have a role. And that's that. D. Eskridge, these are the guys, these are the ones that hurt the most. The D. Eskridges, the Velus Jones Juniors, where you draft them. The thought process was this. This guy was an older prospect, but he was very polished in their opinion. So with Russell Wilson, when they drafted him, they thought this guy is polished. Even though he's older, he'll be ready to play right now, right away. And when those guys come in and fall flat, it hurts the most because now you have a guy that not only did he not translate at this level like he was supposed to, but now he's already old, right? So D. Eskridge, unfortunately, didn't pan out. What are you going to do, right? And of course, Better Boss still holding Eskridge in one Dynasty League. Yeah, you are the Lorax of the weird wide receivers. Nobody has more Richie James than Better Boss. So yeah, of course you would have a lot of D. Eskridge. And sure, hold on, but I don't know. It just, with younger guys, at least you can say, hey, this guy's 20 years old. We need to give him a chance. Like he was like a 24-year-old rookie, so kind of fell straight on his face here. Noah Fant is a very interesting free agent. I would like to see, for fantasy purposes, I want to see him leave because we want our guys to be a top 2 target on the team. And with Metcalf and Lockett and JSN, that was just never going to happen for Noah Fant. But if he goes to a new team where he can be the starter and where they don't have a ton of pass catching options, maybe he can break out. Crazy athleticism for this guy, athletic specimen. Those are the guys we want to stash. He's like, the best tight end combine of all time is like Vernon Davis. And then Noah Fant is honestly up there, man. Like he's he run like a 4.5 flat 40 and big, strong. He just, hasn't really broken out, hasn't had a chance. But we've seen guys like Delaney Walker break out at age 30. He was stuck behind Vernon Davis. So there you go. Will Disley was cut yesterday, Rex. Thank you. He should be white on the chart. I messed that up. I wrote this one maybe like a week ago. So I should have updated this. So Will Disley's cut. Colby Parkinson is also a free agent. So this team has no tight end under contract right now. We'll have to see what they do. Maybe they bring back Fant. Maybe they draft a guy. But yeah, we're waiting on that information. But they do need a tight end. It is not a good landing spot for fantasy football. Too many times I see people look at the depth chart and see nobody at the top, and they think this would be a good landing spot. You not only need to be the starter and the best pass catching tight end on the team, but you need to be a top 2 target on the team to have difference making upside. The vast majority of tight ends that have difference making upside or finish top 5 are top 2 targets on the team. And I say top 2 instead of being number 1, being the focal point, because everyone's like, oh, why don't we want it to be Travis Kelce? Don't we want it to be Mark Andrews and lead the team in targets? Of course we do. But the best tight end season of all time in fantasy football, of all time, number 1, was Rob Gronkowski. And in the year he did that, Wes Welker got 173 targets. 173 in a 16-game season. And in that season, Rob Gronkowski still got 120, and he scored like 17 touchdowns. So you don't need to be the number 1. You can be the number 2. But if you're number 3, your upside is capped. If you're number 3, you're basically a handcuff plus. And on this team, you need 2 injuries to get there, because if Tyler Lockett gets hurt, JSN becomes the second target. Not Noah Fant, not whoever the tight end is. At least with a guy like Dallas Goedert, if Devonta Smith or A.J. Brown gets hurt, now all of a sudden you have a top 2 target. That's not the case here. So this is not a good landing spot, hypothetically, for a tight end. So if you're rooting for Jatavian Sanders, right, and he lands with the Seahawks, you could say, oh no, right? So there you go. Yeah, Kenny McIntosh. I only did 3 layers on here, but Kenny McIntosh, yes, he is technically under contract, and he's really just a depth piece. I mean, they brought him in the same draft as Charbonnet. His whole that kind of killed his value, because he's a pass catcher, and you're like, oh, maybe he'll carve out a pass catching role. And I think what the Seahawks thought is like, we need a pass catching back. We'll draft 2, and maybe the hope for Kenny McIntosh in fantasy was that he would Elijah Mitchell, Zach Charbonnet's Trey Sermon, and be the later guy drafted, but end up being the guy. Turns out Zach Charbonnet's the guy. So if you're a Kenny McIntosh fan, you're actually rooting for him to get cut. And I mean, maybe he will. Like, it actually wouldn't be the end of the world for him to get cut, or traded. Especially traded would be great, because that's them saying, we already have a guy to do what he does. So there you go. Yeah, Anthony says Jatavian lands in Seattle. That would be bad. Mile High Luke, what's up, brother? We're doing the Broncos today. So make sure you hang around. We're doing NFC West first, and then AFC West next. So let's get to the next team. We're trying to cruise through here. I think we covered that one pretty good. Arizona Cardinals weapons. We got the stadium picture in the background. I've been to that stadium. It is wild, dude. It is a dome, and they grow the grass outside and roll it in, but it is very vertical stadium. If you get if you get vertigo, be careful. It's like looking into the Grand Canyon, because like some stadiums are like, you're back here and you're looking forward. If you're sitting in the nosebleeds, you're like up looking straight down. Like, it is kind of wild. I really enjoyed it. I went up there for my bachelor party. It was fun. We definitely had a couple soda pops at the game there. Go Birds, go Redbirds. But yeah, that was a lot of fun, man. Kyler Murray. Here's the thing about Kyler Murray. Say what you want about Kyler. I'm going big screen on this one. Say what you want about Kyler Murray as a leader. Say what you want about Kyler Murray as a person. Say what you want about Call of Duty, any of that stuff. I do not care. For fantasy football, in my dynasty leagues, I care about fantasy points. And Kyler Murray, if you take every quarterback all time and sort them by fantasy points per game, Kyler Murray is top 5 all time. He scampers around, he runs, he finds guys. I do not care if he is the first guy in the chow line and he's not a good leader or teammate or whatever. He's locked into a contract. He's good for fantasy football. Give me all the Kyler Murray. All right. You can go back to the other screen now. Kyler Murray, go get him. He's a good fantasy football asset. Okay. I don't care about Call of Duty. I mean, I Call of Duty's awesome. It's fun. But I don't care that he plays Call of Duty. I don't care what he does. I don't care if he plays it's like some guys are like, we don't care that like he's playing video games and we're like, oh no. And then you see Jason Kelsey, chugging out of a keg and we're like, yeah, it's like, which one is better for an athlete, right? Like, you know what? Like, I'm not going to judge either of them for what they do when they're not on the field because they're both great players, but I don't care if he plays video games. Okay. So give me Kyler Murray. It's great for me that he plays video games. It makes him cheaper in my fantasy leagues. Clayton Tune. Here's the problem for Clayton Tune is we were stashing him early last year in Dynasty, but we're dropping him for two reasons. One, we were stashing him to see if he could be the starter with Kyler Murray hurt to start the season. He did not earn the job. So red flag right there. Number two is that when he came in and did start a game against the Cleveland Browns, it was terrible. And they lost 27-0. And he just is now we're not, and Kyler Murray's a starter. So Clayton Tune, we loved the idea of like, okay, this guy could start right away and we'll see what he looks like. Didn't happen. So now we just cut Clayton Tune. So he might end up being the backup this year. I think they probably need to have a better backup, to be honest. That's why he's yellow on here. If you have a mobile quarterback, you probably want to have a good backup. But Clayton Tune, sorry. James Conner, we have him in red because he could be released, but I don't think he's going to be. This guy is a gamer. He's a baller. I love hearing him talk. He's got a lot of heart. The problem with him is kind of twofold. One, he has the sixth highest cap hit of any player, which is kind of crazy, of any running back, right? Which is kind of crazy because if he were a wide receiver, it would be the 38th highest cap hit. But because he's a running back, it's the sixth. Now, of course, guys like Saquon Barkley and Josh Jacobs will sign contracts, and then it will no longer be the sixth highest contract. But as of this moment, it is. And they could save some money by releasing him, so we have to have him in red. But I think they're going to keep him. Now, in your fantasy leagues, he's difficult to draft in redraft because he almost always gets hurt. In Dynasty, I almost don't care about the injury-prone labels because when I'm competing to win, I have deep teams, right? It's a top-heavy game where the bad teams are all trading away their older players and they're playing for the future and they're going to get draft picks. And the good teams are loading up on older guys, right? So for me, in the leagues where I have James Conner and Keenan Allen and whoever, I put them in my lineup when they're healthy and I play them and they play well. And then when they get hurt, I put in another one of my star players because it's a dynasty league and I'm loaded up with a bunch of players. My bench is full of players that I want to get into my lineup. So I don't care as much. In redraft, that's where the pains come from injury because you're spending this high pick and there's not as much replacement value, right? And again, they don't quite have, it's not like a locked in handcuff situation either where you can just go that route. Like there's very few of those situations where you just put the backup right in. It just doesn't work the way we think it does. So in redraft, I'm a little more hesitant because he's literally, and I say with James Conner because I'm usually kind of injury agnostic. I don't really try and predict who's going to get hurt or who's not. But if I were going to predict a player to get hurt, it would be the guy that has played for 7 years and has never once played the entire season. Every single year, James Conner has missed at least 3 games. He's never played more than 13 games. If anyone is going to miss time, is this fella. You know what I mean? I don't know what it is. There have been guys in the past like Arian Foster. His brother was his personal trainer, and I don't know. I don't want to disparage his brother as a personal trainer, but Arian Foster was hurt all the time. So maybe he should have had the team's trainers or a different personal trainer. But James Conner is hurt all the time. So just keep that in mind. Keontae Ingram was actually released, I want to say, recently. So I might need to update the chart. Michael Carter, this is from last year. So Keontae Ingram was released. I think he was picked up by the Chiefs on a reserves future contract. Michael Carter is still there, and he's interesting to me because he's a pass catcher. If you want to believe what the Jets coach Robert Saleh was saying when they traded him, he basically said, we have too many good running backs, and it's not fair to Michael Carter to have him rot on the bench. I think that's really nice of him to say, but he did look at all the running backs, Izzy Abanikanda and Breece Hall and the whole gang, and say, this guy's the guy we can get rid of. So that is kind of an indictment. But if James Conner were to get hurt, Michael Carter would probably be the pass down back, and Amari DiMercato is the name that should be where Keontae Ingram's is. Amari DiMercato is kind of the next man up. So that's the situation with running back there. This team could maybe go out and get a better RB2. I think that it might be smart for them to do that. There's some names out there that are interesting, like a Gus Johnson maybe, or an A.J. Dillon to kind of be their backup. Kareem Hunt, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Zeke Elliott, Matt Breida, I don't know, Antonio Gibson. Like there's names out there that would be a better RB2 probably than what they have. But again, with James Conner being so injury prone, maybe they should do that. But I don't know. James Conner is a guy that in Dynasty, I'll grab him for his price, whatever it is right now. Then you got after that, Marquise Brown. Well, let's get into the wide receivers. Marquise Brown's a free agent. It's interesting. He's the old regime. What they did is they looked at Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and they said, wow, these guys are best friends and they played together in college and that's really good and everything worked out. And they probably went and tried to do something like that because Marquise Brown played with Kyler Murray in college. And that is an argument for him to be back if they are really good friends and Kyler really wants him back. Maybe they will bring him back, but things didn't really go very well last year. Marquise Brown had some I saw like a stream of him playing video games with some kids and he was like, kind of disparaging what was going on with the team and the situation. So I don't know. I could see him gone, man. And if he is gone, he could be arguably the highest paid free agent wide receiver if Calvin Ridley, it's him and Calvin Ridley at the top. So he could go somewhere and be the wide receiver 2 immediately for a team. If he is gone, what happens next is Michael Wilson becomes the split end, right? Which he already was playing a lot of snaps. He's the 3rd round pick. He's the biggest wide receiver on the team and it's not close. Like Marquise Brown is not big. He's like 5'10", like 170 pounds. Pretty much every wide receiver on this team, on this screen right now, besides Zach Pascal, Michael Wilson has 4 inches on and 30 pounds. Like Rondale Moore, small. Greg Dortch, tiny, right? Like who cares about, Caden Davis? Zach Pascal's the only other one that can, that can play split end. So Michael Wilson would be your split end. And then the rumor is that they draft a wide receiver at 4, whether that's Marvin Harrison Jr. or Rome Odunze or Malik Neighbors. That becomes your Marquise Brown role. And then Rondale Moore is the part-time guy in the slot. That's why Rondale Moore is yellow here. He never played more than like 70% of the snaps in any of the games. He's a part-time guy out of the slot. He's a smaller guy. So I think that's the way it goes here. I think you end up with a rookie opposite of Mike Wilson. And I think that's a pretty good setup for them. Zach Pascal is a guy that coaches love. They love this guy because when you're filling out your depth chart, you got to ask how many things can this guy do? Zach Pascal can play split end. He can play flanker. He can play slot. He's on every special teams unit they have. So Zach Pascal is, he played for Jonathan Gannon with the Eagles. He knows the idea over there. He knows everything. So yeah, like that's the exact kind of guy they love to have. Greg Dortch, he's kind of the backup to Rondale Moore, and he turns punts and stuff and kicks. So if he's gone, they're going to need somebody to return punts and kicks. That's why Antonio Gibson would be a very interesting, if Dortch is gone, Antonio Gibson would be a very interesting guy for them to bring in because he can be a backup for James Conner and he returns kicks, right? You've got DJ Dallas. We talked about him earlier. You've got Craig Reynolds to the Cardinals. That's something that I could see happening, right? Guys that do 2 things. That's an interesting setup. The rest of these guys are all on like reserve future deals. They're kind of just like practice squad adjacent. I don't think any of them really have a lock to make the team. Yeah, and Anthony, I'm with you, dude. Looking at that picture, I think that's the move, man. And I think it solves a lot of your problems like right away. It's just like you get a rookie deal on a high-end player, that very valuable contract. You've got Wilson at split end. You've got Moore. You've got Trey McBride. You have a running back. I mean, like, lock it in. Lock in. If they don't take one at 4, what I would do is if the Giants want a quarterback, you trade with the Giants. And then the Giants move up to 4, and you move down to 6, and then the Giants take a quarterback, and the first 4 picks off the board are quarterbacks, and then you guarantee yourself that you get Marvin Harrison Jr. or Malik Neighbors. So that's if I wasn't going to take a wide receiver at 4 and I still wanted a wide receiver, I'd move down to 6, but I wouldn't move any farther. That's my GM hat is on for that one. Ozzy Montenfort is the GM over there. Give him my email and I'll pass that information on to him. Trey McBride, awesome. star. Once Zach Ertz got hurt, the only tight end that got more targets than him from week 7 or 8 on was Evan Ingram, and Evan Ingram got the 4th most targets of any player in the entire league. So Trey McBride, awesome, cool. If they do even if they bring in a high-end wide receiver, I think he's still a top 2 target on the team. I think he deserves more targets than Michael Wilson, more than Rondale Moore. That's why I'm very high on Trey McBride. Don't tell anybody, but I have Trey McBride slightly ahead of Sam Laporta. What? No, how is that possible? It's possible because Trey McBride is not one addition at wide receiver away from being the 3rd fiddle on the team. He's 2, right? He's a little safer for me. And most of my leagues are full PPR. He's better in full PPR. There are arguments to be made for Sam Laporta in half PPR, and I'd rather have Sam Laporta in standard. But Sam Laporta, even though he's my baby and I love him, he did only have 50 yards a game last year. I mean, it's not like in his rookie season. You gotta remember, Kyle Pitts in his rookie season had like 150 more yards than Laporta just had. Laporta had a good year, but it wasn't like some like insane historic. He was insane and historic for a rookie, but we're not talking about like the time Mark Andrews had 1,300 yards here. So Trey McBride is a guy we love. After that, they're going to basically what most teams do. If you have an elite tight end that's an every down tight end like a Kelsey or a Trey McBride, is then behind him you have 2 guys, and if he gets hurt, you replace him with a mix and match, right? So you've got Jeff Swaim as the blocking tight end, and Elijah Higgins went to Stanford with Michael Wilson and told people that he would convert to tight end if teams asked him to do it. He was drafted by the Dolphins. They released him. He's a tight end, but he was actually a wide receiver. So if McBride goes down, Elijah Higgins becomes very interesting. That's the type of guys I like stashing in my really deep leagues. Is I look around at the deep depth charts. Anybody who's a clunky blocker or isn't particularly athletic, not interested. Anybody that is athletic or a converted wide receiver or a converted quarterback, then there you go. Dynasty Football Key, I see you in the chat. This has been my biggest question for Arizona situation. How do the wide receivers mesh if they take Marv? I'd ranked Arizona top 20 wide receiver room in the league at that point if they keep Hollywood. If they do keep Hollywood, this is the question. Dynasty Football Key. Basically, if you take Marvin Harrison Jr., he is big enough to play split end if you wanted him to. It's a very difficult job for a rookie because now you have to play with your foot tethered to the line. You have to have 7 players tethered to the line every play, right? So, and the widest 2 are eligible to catch passes. Tight end, split end, or 2 tight ends, or 2 split ends, or however you want to do it, or a guy tethered in the slot, whatever. That dude is very susceptible to be jammed because to go in motion, you need to take a step back and someone needs to take a step forward. So you don't have the buffer of being off the line and you can't go in motion. So rookies can get jammed up if they have that rule. So if they keep Marquise Brown and they want Marvin Harrison Jr. to do that, and they want Rondale Moore to be in the slot, and they want to bench Michael Wilson, that's what they would have to do. Otherwise, what they would do is you keep Marquise Brown and you have Michael Wilson as the split end, and then now Marvin Harrison Jr. can play flanker and be off the line, and they mix and match, but one of those guys is going to play a limited snap share, and Rondale Moore goes to the bench, right? So if they draft Marvin Harrison Jr. and keep Marquise Brown, the short and sweet is that one of Rondale Moore or Michael Wilson or both are going to have significantly reduced snap shares, and it will crush their value for fantasy football, which makes them 2 of the most volatile assets right now, unless Marquise Brown is gone, and then we're doing fine. So there you go. All right, that's the NFC West. We really didn't go any faster than we normally do, but we're going to do our best to get through this within the next half hour or so. Okay, AFC West. Let's move on to the next team. Here we go. The Los Angeles Chargers. And there's a lot going on with this team because they are really having a hard time with cap. So Justin Herbert's your starter. He's awesome. He's amazing. You're happy there. You're going to need a backup for Justin Herbert if you're going to compete now. That's not Easton Stick or Will Grier. I'm sorry. You just don't want to. You need someone that can keep the team afloat for a couple wins. Like if your quarterback misses 4 games, you need somebody that can win 2. That's if you're competing now, you need to have that. So for this team, I think they need to go out and get one of the best available quarterbacks. If you can convince Gardner Minshew, great. Drew Lock, Sam Darnold, Mitch Trubisky or Carson Wentz, even just guys that can rock and roll. But yeah, this team has a lot of moving parts. Austin Eckler is leaving in free agency. even if he were to stay, it would be a bad fit for him. Greg Roman, the new offensive coordinator, does not like throwing to the running back. Go look at Frank Gore's stats for his career, and then you can literally see the 4 years where, if you go to his receptions, you can see the 4 years where Greg Roman was the offensive coordinator, because he goes from catching like 50, 60 balls a season to catching like 10 or 15. Yeah, like go look right now or after the show. Go look, and you can literally pick out the exact 4 years where Greg Roman was calling the plays. Right? We know that he will throw to the running back if the team is set up with a running back. Like if Eckler were to be back, he would throw to him some. He did throw to LaShawn McCoy in Buffalo, but not a ton, not as much as you would if you had LaShawn McCoy in most cases. So this team, whatever the running back's going to be, just know they're probably not going to have like 100 targets. It's not how Greg Roman rocks. So Austin Eckler, he's probably gone. Joshua Kelly should be shot out of a cannon into the sun. One of the least efficient players out there. He honestly, if they had a better player than Joshua Kelly as their bruiser back, they might have beat the Jaguars in the playoffs that year that they had the big lead and they literally couldn't get a first down to save their lives, because Austin Eckler's never had 1,000 yards rushing. Not once. Neither has Alvin Kamara. These pass catching backs, they that's not part of their game. And unfortunately, they didn't have that player, couldn't get it done. Isaiah Spiller, he could be in line for a bigger role. I think this team needs to draft or bring in a running back, but they can't really pay up. People are like, oh yeah, Saquon Barkley. It's like, where are they going to get the money? They're already letting Austin Eckler leave. They might have to release star players. Like they have 4 star players and they can't really keep them all. You have Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, Keenan Allen, and Mike Williams. Those guys, you got to do something with those contracts, right? They need to renegotiate, or somebody needs to be released. So I look at Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. They are in red because they could be traded or released. Mike Williams, those 2 players, Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, have the number 1 and number 2 highest wide receiver cap hits of any wide receiver. Keenan Allen's 1, and Mike Williams isn't far behind him at 2. Mike Williams just tore his ACL. So if they're going to cut anybody, it's got to be him. It's just the way it goes. Like he could have been cut even if he didn't tear his ACL, but I mean, I'm sorry, that this is how it goes. And if he does get cut, he'll immediately be one of the best free agent wide receivers on the market, and he will get paid a lot of money again. Mike Williams is going to be just fine. He's a multimillionaire. Darius Davis, he's in green here because he's on the team. He's under contract, and he returns kicks and punts. That's the thing. We have to think about it from an NFL standpoint. He is on the team for sure. Quentin Johnston, very scary, very disappointing. You want to see him do better when he gets an opportunity like he did last year, where Keenan Allen and Mike Williams get hurt. He should be his opportunity to go crazy, right? Talk about JSN, how he didn't have the opportunity because he was behind Lockett and DK Metcalf, right? Quentin Johnston did. He was playing like 90% of the snaps in a bunch of those games. Did not really pop, did not really flash. Josh Palmer is he's a safer player. He, is a contested catch type guy. I like Josh Palmer. Quentin Johnston really scares me. If there was somebody in your draft, if you took Quentin Johnston and they said, oh, I got sniped, I really like that guy, I would check and see if that guy still likes Quentin Johnston. He probably doesn't, but I would see if you can get out of that. Probably won't get a first, but maybe a second just to re-roll again, because I don't know. Was a raw talent, and he might develop still. So, but I worry with guys like that, man. So yeah, shout out Josh Palmer, shout out Better Boss in the chat. I kind of like Simi Fehoko too when he was with Dallas. I was hoping he would convert to tight end. Shout out Simi Fehoko. I actually see him posting on Reddit. He posts on the rep and which is basically what I mean by reps, like replica stuff. Like all his jewelry and stuff and watches are actually fakes. He posts the stuff himself. Like he doesn't care. He even comments and he's like, why would I pay $20,000 for this when I could get it for $800 and it's the same exact materials, the same exact thing? I don't know. We don't have time to go into that, but Simi Fehoko, I think he's a real one. I think he's a real dude. I think that's cool of him to be like, you know what? Forget paying, out the nose for all this stupid stuff. It's unnecessary. I like the way it looks, but I'm not going to pay. So yeah, shout out Simi Fehoko. Jalen Guyton is all exercise team type player. He had every opportunity as well. So I'm not interested there. Alex Erickson, I think, is not coming back because the main thing that he does is return punts, but Darius Davis was better at it. So I'm not even sure what Alex Erickson's role would even be. Tight end Gerald Everett, probably gone. They just can't afford. He's going to be one of the highest paid tight ends because Dalton Schultz re-signed with the Texans. Hunter Henry re-signed with the Patriots. He's now one of the best free agent tight ends, if not the best. So somebody will pay him. Donald Parham, don't fall for it. I'm telling you guys, he's skewing blocking. He's not particularly. I mean, he does make fun, you know, catches in the red zone and the end zone, and you maybe a best ball league is where you go. But I'm just not in on Donald Parham. Stone Smart is a guy I'm stashing in deep leagues. He checks all the boxes for the memes for tight end, right? He's a converted. He played quarterback in high school, then played wide receiver in college, and now he's a tight end. Bing, bang, boom. That's 2 boxes right there. Both of his parents are they were Division I basketball players. So bing, bang, basketball, check those boxes. And his name is Stone Cold Smart. I kid you not. Stone Cold, dude. Boom. Let's go, dude, because Stone Cold said so, right? So Stone Smart, deep dynasty leagues, I'm stashing him. Fun guy, cool guy, right? But he had the 51-yard touchdown. We went crazy on Twitter because we've been talking about him. But I don't know, like if they go with these two guys, don't be surprised if Stone Smart is the better pass catcher. So there you go. And I'll tell you what, with all this stuff we're talking about, right? Like, let's say you think Mike Williams gets cut. Anthony in the chat saying $32 million for Mike Williams cap hit to keep him. Seems like he'd be gone, right? Well, if you're predicting that to happen, one way to take advantage of that, whoops, got rid of the wrong guy there. One way to take advantage of that, like, let's say you do think Mike Williams gets released and you think Josh Palmer is going to step in and be the guy, or you think Quentin Johnson is going to be awesome, then you can take advantage of that right now over at MyFFPC. Use promo code Coop. They'll give you $25 when you deposit 35 or more. Take advantage of that now with their early best ball contests that are up now. I think the Fantasy Pros one is actually up or will be up soon, the way too early best ball. And you can win big money in those, 25K, pretty cool stuff. And we're doing all this work. We wrote 32 articles, one on each team. We're doing these videos, right? These insane solo videos where we're talking about all the free agency predictions and moves. You can go in right now and take advantage of that before everybody else, and this information that gives us an advantage. So use the promo code Coop, use a QR code right here, or click the link in the description and go get set up with myffpc.com. If you use that promo code, if you're a first-time guy, they'll give you $25 when you deposit 35 or more. The promo code is Coop, C-O-O-P. Take advantage. We do all this work for a reason. You can win a lot of money over there. All right? So that's it. We can't just sit here talking about FFPC all day. We got teams to get through. We're already coming up on the hour mark, and we're losing our marbles. So here we go. Las Vegas Raiders. I learned recently that you do not say black and silver. They will get mad. The fans, it's silver and black. I was corrected by a kind Redditor, right, that said that is not the case. So do not say black and silver. You say black and yellow for the Steelers. You say silver and black for this team, or you will get yelled at. I got yelled at. I don't know why I have Jimmy Garoppolo in green on the chart. He couldn't be any more red. They were 100% releasing him. In fact, they did him. He did them a huge favor by getting suspended for PEDs because he was set up to cost them. So he was going to get released by March no matter what, because he was going to have a roster bonus of $11.25 million. If they were to wait too long to release him, they would have to pay that. His salary is also 11.25, and they were just going to have to eat that. But because he got suspended for PEDs, that gets voided. He saved them $11 million by doing PEDs and gets suspended for 2 games. So great for them. Terrible for Jimmy G. And it's terrible for him because now he's going to miss the first 2 games of the year. So forget competing to be the starting quarterback on day one. We talked about the Giants earlier, how they might want to bring in some competition and have that guy start while Daniel Jones is coming back from injury. Guess what? Jimmy G cannot play for 2 games, so he is totally out of the question on that. What are you going to have 2 guys on the depth chart that aren't going to be ready to play week 1? No, of course not. So Jimmy G is in trouble. Aiden O'Connell, in my opinion, deserves an opportunity to compete. I did not say he should be the starting quarterback for the Las Vegas Raiders, but I'm also not saying that you just throw him away and that he's just nobody. I think he came out, had a bunch of 300-yard games. He could deliver the ball to Devontae Adams. I think he deserves a chance to compete, right? If you bring in Russell Wilson on, his cheap deal or whatever, we'll talk about him coming up in a moment. If you bring in a rookie, Aiden O'Connell deserves a chance to compete. I'm calling for it now. Brian Hoyer, he is he's a veteran. You want to have him around if you do draft a rookie quarterback, right? He's like basically a coach at this stage, right? The thing is, if they trade him, then a huge chunk of his money goes with him and he comes off the books. So he could be a guy that a team that needs a veteran backup to help a young quarterback is willing to trade for. The 7th round pick, because who cares, is Brian Hoyer, and you're doing the Raiders a favor cap wise. So it would be like a 7th round pick, but don't be surprised if a team is actually interested in that. Running back, as we know, Josh Jacobs, a free agent. They're not going to franchise tag him again. Hard to say whether he could be back. I'll tell you what, the Raiders have a decision to make here in regards to blow the whole thing up or try and appease the stars. And the way they did that was keep Antonio Pierce. Everyone likes Antonio Pierce over there. The players like Antonio Pierce. They made him the head coach. That makes Davante Adams happy. That makes everybody happy, right? So the only guy that's not happy that Josh McDaniels is gone is probably Jacoby Myers, because he knew him from the Patriots days. A few of these other guys did as well. But, Josh Jacobs could be back, right? Amir Abdullah didn't quite pan out as a pass catching back, didn't really play very much. So, I don't see him being the guy. Zamir White, he's in yellow here because he could be the starter. He could be the dude, but Tom Telesco already came out and said something that has me a little concerned. He said that they want to go with a committee approach at running back. Straight up said it. That's bad for fantasy football. Zamir White could be the starter, but that means they're going to bring in somebody that can supplement him in the pass catching game. Brandon Bolden, he could be back, and you're asking why. You say, Coop, he was a Josh McDaniels guy. Josh McDaniels is gone. He didn't really do anything. Why would they bring Brandon Bolden back? They would bring Brandon Bolden back because he plays on 6 special teams units. 6, all of them. That's all of them. Kick return, punt return, field goal block. Brandon Bolden could be back for that reason. And if he's not back, somebody will sign him, because a guy that can do all those things saves you roster spots. That's the deal. So I'm not really worried about Britton Brown or Sincere McCormick. They're just on like practice squad reserve deals. At wide receiver, you got Davante Adams. Everyone always wants to trade Davante Adams all the time. That's just, the way it goes. They want to trade him to the Jets. They want to trade him to pretty much every team. So who knows? But he's a superstar, and wherever he goes, he will be good. So I like Davante Adams. I think he's a future Hall of Famer. Jacoby Myers, he's probably locked in. I don't see them going out and getting another wide receiver to upgrade over Myers. So he's in there. Hunter Renfrow could be traded or released. I think it was kind of dumb for them to have, redundant assets of Jacoby Myers and Hunter Renfrow. So I think Renfrow is trade bait for them. And if he is traded, then Trey Tucker could pick up that role. I have Trey Tucker here in green because he returned every punt and kick for this team. So he's got that role at the very least. They drafted him last year. He's going to be a return specialist regardless, but he could also move up and be the slot guy. So the fact that they have Adams and Myers means that Tucker, probably not super relevant, but maybe in like a best ball league, especially a format that gives you points for running back a punt for a touchdown every once in a while. Christian Wilkerson came over. He's a former Patriot. He's probably gone. DJ Turner didn't really do a whole lot, so probably gone as well. Michael Mayer. Here's the deal with Michael Mayer. Short and sweet is this. With a guy like Michael Mayer, and this goes for all tight ends, really. There are, I'm gonna get up close personal on this one. There are 3 barriers for rookie and young tight ends, right? The first thing you need to do is be the top pass catching tight end in the group. If you have multiple tight ends, you need to be the better pass catcher. So last year, Michael Mayer did that. He proved that he was better than Austin Hooper. So he got over hurdle 1. Hurdle number 2 is being an every down player, right? A full-time player, or at least every pass situation, right? You can get caught in no man's land like Cameron Brate and Anthony Ferkser and Kylan Granson if you're not an every down player. And to do that, you either need to be good enough at blocking and pass catching to be a George Kittle type every down player, or you need to just be better than the wide receivers and be an Evan Engram or Mark Andrews that just plays wide receiver, essentially, right? That's hurdle number 2. That's not even the only thing you need to do to be fantasy relevant. The last hurdle is being a top 2 pass catcher on the team, which for a guy like Michael Mayer, where they have Davante Adams and Jacoby Myers, probably not going to happen this year. That's the final hurdle to fantasy relevance. You need to get over all 3 hurdles. I think this year Michael Mayer gets over hurdle 2 and becomes an every down player, but he needs to be a top 2 pass catcher on the team. I don't know if we get there. So there you go. Bring the Raiders back up. So yeah, Michael Mayer in, Austin Hooper probably out. Somebody will pay him because of how crazy thin the tight end class is. Just got even more thin with Dalton Schultz and Hunter Henry going back to their teams. Zach Gentry, blocking tight end that was with the Steelers. They have Darnell Washington now. Didn't really need him, but Zach Gentry, he's a solid blocking tight end. That means they're going to need another backup pass catching tight end. Because Cole Fotheringham and John Samuel Schenker. What is this, an old-timey duel? Who are these guys, dude? Cole Fotheringham and John Samuel Schenker? Are you serious? Those guys, they know John Hancock, right? They come over on the Mayflower. Whatever. Those guys are blocking tight ends. After Michael Mayer, you're going to need another pass catcher in case somebody in case Michael Mayer gets hurt, because Zach Gentry is not that guy. Jesper Horsted could be back. He is a pass catching type player. Kylan Granson could be released by the Colts. That would work. Anthony Ferguson could be released by the Lions. That could work, right? We're just trying to figure out. We just need somebody that can just kind of catch passes here, right? So that's kind of what we're looking at. I mean, some of the other names, Mike Gesicki, right? Tanner Hudson, if they don't pick up his RFA thing, right? So there you go. That's the Raiders. 2 teams left. We'll get through these quick because I know we're over an hour already. Quarterback Russell Wilson, they told him he's being released. This is the craziest situation because the offset language in his contract says that whatever contract he gets doesn't pay him more money. He's already getting paid a boatload of money. Any contract he gets paid just means the Broncos have to pay him less and the new team pays him. So I don't know the exact number offhand, but let's say he's due $30 million. If the new team pays him $5 million, he doesn't get $35 million. He still gets 30, but $5 million comes from the new team, $25 million from the other team. So here's where it gets crazy. If a team wants to sign Russell Wilson to multiple years, then they'll compete and they'll do that. And Russ will do it because he's locking in money for the future. If no team wants to do that, he could hypothetically sign with a team for the veteran minimum. For a guy that's played in the league as long as him, that's still only $1.2 million. If he does that, then the new team will get Russ, and they'll only pay $1.2 million off the cap, and the Broncos will be stuck with all that money. So if Russ wants to do that, he can do that. And now you can start imagining when you look at the 49ers and how their quarterback only makes $1 million and all the guys they could pay. Just think about if your quarterback was making $1 million, what everything else you could do. It's like the Vikings. Do they want to pay Kirk Cousins $50 million guaranteed, or do they want to pay Russell Wilson $1 million? These are the questions, right? So you have to first figure out if he's willing to do that. But if he is, he could stick it to those Broncos, baby. Jarrett Stidham, not the guy. People saying that he's going to be a guy. I don't think he's a guy. Ben DiNucci, not either. So Broncos, they got something they need to do at quarterback. Would not be surprised to see them draft somebody. Would not be surprised to see Sean Payton just kind of like somebody weird, like, Sam Darnold or Gardner Minshew. Like Sean Payton is definitely kind of a Kyle Shanahan type guy that says I'll just do whatever. I mean, look at the depth chart of this team. It's just all guys that Sean Payton and Joe Lombardi played with in the past. Little Jordan Humphreys and Traquan Smith came over. Those guys were with the Saints. Michael Bandy was with the Chargers. Like the GM basically was just bring all your friends. Dwayne Washington was with the Saints. The fullback they brought over played for the Saints. It's just silly how they decide. Basically, just all old friends of Sean Payton, right? And then none of those guys did anything. So awesome. Javonte Williams is the starter. He was very inefficient this year. 3.8 yards a carry, coming off a knee injury, right? Jaleel McLaughlin had over 5 yards a carry. I know our guest from Wednesday, Derek Brown of Fancy Bros, loves Jaleel McLaughlin. Definitely a stash for me. Samaje Perine was a pass down back. He ran more routes than Javonte Williams. He had 9 yards of reception, whereas Javonte Williams had 4. The question is whether they like that or whether they're going to upgrade the pass down back. I'll tell you what, this team with Joe Lombardi, we knew Joe Lombardi loved passing to the running back with the Chargers, with the Saints, with the Lions. He threw 150 passes to the running back. This team last year quietly combined led the league in passes to the running back. That's what Joe Lombardi does. So I'll tell you right now, Javonte Williams fans don't want to hear it, but Joe Lombardi bringing all his friends over. Austin Eckler's a free agent. What happens if Alvin Kamara gets cut? And Sean Payton says, I know this guy. Let's bring him in. Now it's Javonte Williams on rundowns and Alvin Kamara, Austin Eckler on pass downs. It is a scary possibility. I'm not saying it's going to happen. You know, in the fantasy football industry, we love to be like, that'll never happen. You're stupid. You're an idiot. I'm saying that. Don't be surprised if it does happen. All right. So, and it would be bad for fantasy football. Not good. Not great. So just be careful with that. Dwayne Washington gone. Tyler Beatty possibly cut. Wide receiver, they're talking about a potential trade, right? Anthony wants to know what we think about the Sutton or Judy situation. I think that Jerry Judy could get traded. There was a lot of talk about this, and I'll tell you what, there are quotes from Sean Payton, even in October, of him basically saying that because of overlapping skill sets, it was difficult to get Jerry Judy and Marvin Mims on the field at the same time. If Jerry Judy gets traded, what does that mean for Marvin Mims? You do the math, right? Marvin Mims could be a guy if Judy is traded. So there you go. Courtland Sutton is a big split end. If he were gone, it's the harder player to replace because like Mike Evans, T. Higgins, Michael Pittman, they all got kept. Who's the next big, strong split end available? DJ Chark? I mean, Chase Claypool, Donovan Peoples-Jones. You can't bring in Marquise Brown to play split end. He does the same things as Jerry Judy. He's tiny, a little small guy. So you can't do that, right? So, I mean, maybe if Michael Thomas gets cut, he comes through. You know, maybe Tim Patrick becomes the big split end. I don't know, but there you go. Little Jordan Humphrey, if he's back, I mean, it should be big Jordan Humphrey because this guy's like 6'4", 225. You know, it's just funny that he's a little Jordan. He should be Lil Nathaniel Dell instead of Tank Dell, and he should be Tank Humphrey, right? But I don't know. I don't pick the names. It's hard to, you know, how do they know? And you can't know in advance that this guy's going to be a monster when you're calling him Lil Jordan. But anyway, enough with the name game. At tight end, Adam Trotman's a free agent. He's useless. Chris Manhurst is a blocking tight end. Nate Adkins is like a hybrid fullback that plays special teams. I don't care about any of those guys. None of them. In fantasy football, you should not roster any of them. If you are rostering them, drop them. Greg Dulcich, we do like. He's a converted wide receiver. There you go. He's got amazing hair, right? He looks like James Franco if James Franco was like Weird Al for Halloween. That's Greg Dulcich, right? Like, but I like him. I want him. Lucas Kroll, also pass catching type guy, and of course, just like all these other guys, he was in New Orleans. That was the team he came over from. So Lucas Kroll is the next most exciting for fantasy football on this team. Kroll, Warrior King. Get him in your insanely deep lineup. You know, if you're in a crazy league where Stone Smart's already rostered, go pick up Lucas Kroll, right? Like these are like the super insanely deep best ball leagues. Like I'm in a couple of those where I have like Stone Smart and Lucas Kroll and Elijah Higgins. In most formats, those guys are just on the wire, and you're just kind of keeping an eyeball in case Greg Dulcich gets hurt again. He missed the entire season last year. So there you go. That's the Broncos. On to the last team of the entire series. Now, we've covered 31 teams on these shows, man. Thank you so much to everybody that's hung out with us, that's joined us, dude. Mile High Luke, Anthony, TD, Jack, Ani Coop, like everybody, man, the Dynasty, all you guys, dude, Fantasy Alignment family, thank you so much for joining us. Matt Deutsch, thank you so much behind the glass for helping us do these. We're on to the final team. And of course, who's it going to be? The champ is here. The champions, the new dynasty, the new Patriots. I just saw that they replaced the Cowboys as the most hated team out there. So congratulations. If you have haters, you're doing something right. I need more haters, man. I don't know what I can do to get more haters. I've got some for sure, but I need more because the Chiefs have a ton of haters because they keep beating everybody, man. They're awesome. Patrick Mahomes, don't have to talk long about him. He is incredible, and he is signed until 2032. Think about that, dude. Think about what you're going to be doing in 2032. Like my daughter's going to be 8. Right now she's 6 months old. She'll be 8 then when Patrick Mahomes has to get a new contract. That's wild. He's locked up. Smart of them to do that. Blaine Gabbert, when he did play, it was pretty bad. He they technically won the one game where he started, but I mean, this guy's stats were like 50% completion percentage, no touchdowns, 3 picks. They're not going to judge him based on a limited sample size on Sunday. They judge him based on what he does in practice and in-house. So if they want to keep him, they're gonna re-sign him based on that, not based on what he did in those games. But I don't know. I mean, like if they keep him, great. If not, you got to have a again. This is a team competing now. They need to have a guy that can, if you put him out there for 4 games, he can win 2. That's it. So um, there are some names out there. We've named them, the Drew Locks and the Sam Darnolds of the world. That'd be cool. Ian Book is not the guy. Ian Book, the thing with guys like Ian Book, even in your Superflex league, the big red flag and the condemnation for a guy like Ian Book is that he was on a team that needed a quarterback, that was QB needy, and the quarterbacks were getting hurt, and he still never got a chance. I'm talking about him. He was on the Saints. He was drafted out of Notre Dame, and he was on the Saints. And obviously, they needed quarterback help, and he never even had a chance, right? He never even came close. So, you know, I just don't know what he would need to do and what his path would be to be fantasy relevant. So even in Superflex, you don't have to hold on to Ian Book. Isaiah Pacheco is a starter. He runs angry, runs hard, great player. But I will say this. I have him green here because he's a starter no matter what. But this is another team, just like Javonte Williams. They like Jerick McKinnon, but Jerick McKinnon will turn 32 next month, 32 years old, and he's got a long injury history. And I think maybe they do go out and get another pass down back. Austin Eckler, again, a name that's out there. Antonio Gibson. Antonio Gibson could come in and be. I think this is my landing spot for Antonio Gibson because they could be losing Richie James, and Richie James returned virtually every punt and kick for this team. If Richie James is gone, they will need somebody. So there you go. Sky Moore will be back on a rookie deal, but as Mile High Luke points out, yeah, a lot of guys could be gone, man. I'm with you on that. So at running back, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is gone or whatever. The most interesting of these deeper guys is Deneric Prince, just because he's 6 foot, 220, ran like a 4.4. Like he's on paper kind of interesting. So Deneric Prince, if you're going to stash anybody in your deep league, that's the guy I'm stashing. No Michael P. Ryan or any of those guys for me. Wide receiver, yes. Rashee Rice is a star. He's the man. He got 100 plus targets, even with Travis Kelce there as a rookie. And he didn't even take advantage of his best skill set, which is contested catches. He only had 1 contested catch in coming out of college. He had the most contested catches of anybody that was drafted that year. So this guy could hypothetically be even better. Go get Rashee Rice. We are very excited about Rashee Rice. Travis Kelce had 100 plus targets. He had 100 plus targets. Next closest was Justin Watson with 52. So this team they need another wide receiver. Justin Watson, they like him for special teams, and because he's a big body, they can block, just like Sammy Watkins or Byron Pringle. But this team could use a better split end. They could use a better field stretcher. They could use a better slot guy like Sky Moore. At this stage, man, he's had so much opportunity, hasn't done anything. Kadarius Toney's definitely gone. You got to release that guy. You can release him with 2.5 million savings with 0 dead cap. Yeah, smell you later, Kadarius. He was complaining about not being active in the playoffs and stuff. He said he wasn't hurt, even though they said he was hurt, which the team can get in trouble for that. So, done. See you later. They already cut Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Mecole Hardman could be the field stretcher, but I think he's probably gone, man. So there you go. Look to take RB2 for redraft from this team. Pacheco is fighting injuries each year. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, Luke. If they bring in anyone that can pass, I want whatever guy is the best at catching passes out of the backfield. That's the RB that I'm going to draft. So I love that strategy. Good stuff. If Richie James is gone, they need somebody that return kicks and punts. Montrell Washington is a name to keep an eye on. He could be released, but he also was a pretty good kick returner when he was with the Broncos. But then Sean Payton brought in his own kick returners and whatever. But that's Montrell Washington's path to making the team. And then they have a ton of reserve future guys signed, and I don't really care. Corn Powell, don't care. Justin Ross is interesting to me. He was very good in college. Then he got hurt, and his numbers fell off. And then they found out he had a congenital issue with his neck and spine, which no player with his condition has ever been cleared to play in the NFL. There have been guys with similar conditions that have played. David Wilson played briefly with a congenital spine issue, and then he retired because of it and went to do track. Michael Irving had a similar congenital spinal issue that they didn't even know about. Don't go and watch his last play in the NFL because he got hit hard and couldn't like move his body. And then he retired immediately after. He didn't get paralyzed, but they found out that he had this issue. Like that is scary to me. Like something I remember reading something like 28 teams at the combine and based on his medicals said that they would not clear him to play football. And they just took him off their board completely. That's why he went undrafted. There was only like 2 or 3 teams that would even consider letting this guy play football. One was the Chiefs, and the Chiefs have cleared him to play. I don't know, man. I don't like the idea of it, to be honest with you. But you know what? If he wants to play, chase his dream. Who am I to say no? I'm not a doctor. I'm just some guy on YouTube, you know. But I just say it concerns me, scares me a little bit. So yeah, that's the wide receivers. At tight end, you got Travis Kelce, awesome, superstar, Hall of Famer. The only concern for him is if and when he ever retires. His brother just retired, so you know he's dating Taylor Swift. If they get hitched, then he doesn't have to worry about money ever again. So I don't know. That's the only concern for that guy. But as long as he plays, he's going to be your starter in your lineup. Noah Gray, good in his role. I had him as yellow. A Redditor pointed out that I basically said that his role is safe and that he's the tight end too, and he plays like 50% of the snaps. So I should change him to green. You know, he plays a lot of snaps as their second tight end. This team quietly uses a lot of 2 tight end sets. So Noah Gray, and in the game where Kelce missed the first week of the season, he looked all right, man. He got a few targets. He was playing in that role. So I don't know. I don't know how I would like start. It's not like Isaiah Likely where I would start him right away if the starter got hurt, but he's a guy, you know. Chiefs fans like Jody Fortson has dealt with too many injuries. Unfortunately, I don't trust him. Blake Bell is a blocker. They're going to need an additional blocking tight end. Maybe he'll be back. Isaiah Gathings is actually he's a guy we typically would be interested in because we say, oh, converted wide receiver. That's what we like. But he's 6'3", 220 something, which, you know, is wide receiver sized, but he ran like a 4.7. Just slow, even for tight ends. So I don't know, man. Why are we talking about Isaiah Gathings? That's it. That's the show, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. All the other divisions are up now. You can check them out. Every single team has an article like this up. I wrote them all myself. Crazy, right? But we got to know what's going on, man. We got to get plugged in. We got to get fired up. Monday, legal tampering period, free agency, rocking and rolling. And I'm going to do a show with Theo Greminger over on Player Profiler just because from 11 to noon, just while we wait for free agency to kick in and the legal tampering period to open. So come hang out with us on that. If you're listening on the audio podcast, please, first of all, if you're listening on the audio podcast, thank you. You're awesome. You're cool. Check out the articles if you want to see all the charts I was talking about in the show. Also, hit like, hit subscribe. And if you could leave us a rating, that would be huge because it means everything in getting traction and moving us up the charts. I don't even know where we are on the charts. I don't care. Like this show is for Fantasy Alarm members to get us better and make us better. But I do care a little bit. If you could leave us a good rating, that'd be really nice. But you know, I do appreciate that. If you're just on YouTube or watching, go over, even if you don't listen to the podcast, go over and hit like, hit subscribe and download, you know, on your iTunes or whatever. Just get set up. It helps us, you know what I mean? And you know, you guys have been so awesome hanging out and for all these shows. So I'd appreciate that. Also, you know, as we talked about, go over to myffpc.com, use promo code Coop. When you get set up, they'll give you $25 when you deposit 35 or more. Again, that supports the show. It helps me, and it's also a great place to play fantasy football. So that's it for me. I'm out of here. Matt Deutsch behind the glass. You're the man. Sorry I kept you an extra 23 minutes, but we had 2 divisions today. Everybody in the chat that hung out, you guys rock, dude. You're the best. You're the ones that make the world go round. So that's it for me. Once again, shout out to my beautiful wife on her birthday, Kate Rose Cooper. That's it. We're out. Bye.